So, few words about the outcomes of the 9th meeting of the POPs Review Committee. As you may know, it was held in Rome from 14 to 18 October. And the most important issue was the 5 chemicals which were reviewed, and then some technical work. Among the 5 chemicals, we had 2 proposals for listing new chemicals, and those have been evaluated according to the Annex D screening criteria. It was the decabromodiphenyl ether and dicophol. Pentachlorophenol, its salts and esters have been in the Annex E risk profile stage, and chlorinated naphthalenes and hexachlorobutadiene were in the Annex F risk management stage. There was also some technical work, and you will be informed later on the outcomes of this. One of the new chemicals, newly proposed chemicals, decabromodiphenyl ether, has been moved from the Annex D stage to Annex E stage because it fulfilled the screening criteria according to Annex D. An intersessional working group has been established to prepare a draft risk profile, which will be considered at the next meeting of the POPs Review Committee. Parties and observers have been invited to submit information according to the Annex E. Dicophol remained at the Annex D stage. The POPs Review Committee members could not agree whether the proposal fulfilled the screening criteria according to Annex D, although the majority was of the opinion it did fulfill the criteria. It will be considered again at the next meeting of the POPs Review Committee. Pentachlorophenol, its salts and esters has been evaluated. The risk profile has been discussed and evaluated, and it has been finally adopted with some adjustments and changes. An intersessional working group has been established to prepare the draft risk management evaluation, and parties and observers have been invited to submit information on socioeconomic considerations according to the Annex F. Chlorinated naphthalenes were also passing to the Annex F stage, and they have been recommended for listing. The risk management evaluation has been adopted, and the POPs Review Committee recommended to the Conference of the Parties that it considers listing of polychlorinated naphthalenes, D2-octachlorinated naphthalenes, in Annex A for elimination, and also under Annex C, because there is also the aspect of unintentional releases of these substances. The 7th meeting of the Conference of the Parties, which will take place in May 2015, will take the decision on listing of these substances in Annex A or C, might take the decision on listing. Hexachlorobutadiene also passed the Annex F stage, and the POPs Review Committee recommended this substance for listing in the annexes to the convention. The risk management evaluation has been adopted, and at the next meeting of the Conference of the Parties to the Stockholm Convention in May 2015, the conference will deliberate whether to list this substance in Annex E for elimination and in Annex C on unintentional releases. As I mentioned, there has been also some technical work done at the POPs Review Committee meeting, and as outcome of this, the terms of reference for the assessment of alternatives to the uses of PFOS, its salts, has been adopted, and an intersessional working group established. Parties and observers have been invited to submit information on alternatives to PFOS, its salts, and also PFOS-F and their related chemicals. The revised guidance on alternatives to PFOS has been adopted, and also the guidance on how to assess the possible impact of climate change on the work of the committee. Adopted has been also the approach to evaluation of chemicals in accordance with Annex E. The later two guidance documents are targeted to the work of the POPs Review Committee, and it should help the committee members to do their work in the future based on the past practices and experiences which have been already acquired by the committee in its previous work. The summary of the call of information for the intersessional work of the committee: by 10th of January 2014, parties and observers are invited to submit Annex E information on decabromodiphenyl ether, Annex F information on pentachlorophenol, its salts and esters, and they are also requested by 31st January 2014 to submit any information on alternatives to PFOS, its salts, and also PFOS-F. Anytime will be welcome information on short-chain chlorinated paraffins, and this should be information according to Annex E to develop the risk profile for short-chain chlorinated paraffins. Thank you very much for your attention, and I will pass the floor to my colleague Paul Wiley.
Thank you very much, Katerina, and good morning, buenos dias, bonjour to all of you, and thank you again for participating in this webinar. We now turn our attention to the Chemical Review Committee and its 9th meeting, which was held in Rome between the 22nd and 24th of October 2013. I will quickly turn to the substantive issues, the chemicals that were reviewed by the committee. The first is the pesticide trichlorophane, and at CRC 8, the meeting last year, the review committee recommended that this chemical be listed in Annex 3 to the convention, this recommendation being made to the Conference of the Parties. As such, it looked intersessionally to prepare a decision guidance document to support parties in making a decision on import responses. And this decision guidance document was adopted at the meeting in Rome. So now we have the recommendation for listing and the draft decision guidance document that will go forward to the Conference of the Parties at the 7th meeting in May of 2015, where that body will take a decision on whether to list trichlorophane in Annex 3 to the convention. Next, we have methimidofos, which is another pesticide. And the Chemical Review Committee concluded that the notifications from Brazil and EU met the criteria in Annex 2. And I must remind you that the Chemical Review Committee only looks at notifications, 2 notifications coming from 2 different PIC regions of the globe. So based on that, the CRC recommended to list methimidofos in Annex 3 of the convention, and that recommendation will go to the conference of the parties. And it has now established an intersessional drafting group to prepare a draft decision guidance document for methimidofos, and that draft will be considered at the next meeting of the conference of the Chemical Review Committee next year in 2014. If the decision guidance document is accepted by the committee, then the draft DGD and the recommendation will go also to the Conference of the Parties at its 7th meeting for a decision on whether to list methimidofos in Annex 3 to the convention. I now turn to a severely hazardous pesticide formulation, a proposal that came from Chad on Fentheon ULV to a maximum of 640 grams per liter concentration. And the Chemical Review Committee concluded that this proposal met the criteria in Part 3 of Annex 4 of the Convention. As such, this chemical has been recommended by the Chemical Review Committee for listing in Annex 3 of the Convention. And this recommendation will go to the Conference of the Party at its next meeting also in May 2015. As is always, the committee has established an intersessional drafting group to prepare a decision guidance document. And at its next meeting in 2014, the committee will consider this draft decision guidance document, and hopefully it will be approved and will go along with the recommendation for listing to the COP at its meeting in 2015. There were other chemicals in front of the committee. We saw lead arsenate, which is another pesticide, and we had 2 notifications under consideration, one from Japan and one from Peru. The latter, from Peru, met all the criteria of Annex 2, but unfortunately the notification from Japan did not meet all the criteria of Annex 2. And as such, the lead arsenate has been set aside by the committee, and no further action will be taken until we have another notification coming forward that meets the criteria in Annex 1. The committee also looked at cyhexatine, as well as lead carbonate and pentachlorobenzene. Cyhexatine had 2 notifications from Japan and Canada, and the notification from Canada met the criteria, but the one from Japan did not. We also saw a industrial chemical, lead carbonate, before the committee, and here we had 2 notifications from Latvia and Japan, but both of these did not meet the criteria of Annex 2. Finally, we had pentachlorobenzene, which was considered previously by the Chemical Review Committee, but the notification from Japan, this party presented further documentation on its notification, but after review, the committee decided that still this notification did not meet the criteria of Annex 2 to the convention. So all 3 chemicals were put aside: cyhexatine, lead carbonate, and pentachlorobenzene, waiting for new notifications to come on board for a new review of the chemical. I now turn our attention to the first joint meeting of the Persistent Organic Pollutants Review Committee, the POPRC, and the Chemical Review Committee, which also took place in Rome. In between the two committee meetings, it was held on Sunday, the 20th of October. And the matters before this meeting, mandates and review processes under the two committees. At the XCOP omnibus decision, it was requested that the committees look at the alignment of their working arrangements, looking at scientific information exchange relating to chemicals before the committees, and also to consider steps to enhance the cooperation and coordination between the two committees. And of course, the committees would look at guidance to assist parties for the Rotterdam Convention and the CRC when considering a chemical that has already been listed under the Stockholm Convention. So, what were the outcomes of this discussion? In terms of mandates and review processes, there are a number of chemical documents that are prepared by both committees, and it was considered prudent that these documents could be shared, especially where it's related to a common chemical. So the POPRC, for instance, produces risk profiles, and the Chemical Review Committee produces decision guidance documents and the PIC circular. And both committees thought it would be good if the information from these pieces of document are shared between the two committees. The Chemical Review Committee also has a process of doing a preliminary review of notifications that come before it. And it was felt that it would be good for the POPRC to consider a similar process of preliminarily reviewing proposals before it for chemicals to become POPs. And that will be considered at the next POPRC meeting. In terms of the alignment, it was felt that the members and observers from one committee should be invited to the meeting of the second committee. And this was put as a responsibility of the Secretariat to ensure that observers and members are invited to both committee meetings. On scientific information exchange, the members expressed difficulty in addressing impurities, transformation products, isomers, articles, and commercial mixtures. And it was agreed that both would look to share information on these very knotty issues, especially with chemicals that are brought before them that do have one or more of these properties. And it was also considered that the GHS classification system could be used. But in terms of the POPRC, the classification does not consider chemicals with regards to their POPs characteristics, and this posed a particular problem for the POPRC committee. It was felt that there is information that could be used from both committees. For instance, the risk management evaluation documents from POPRC could be used to support the preparation of decision guidance documents and vice versa. Also, it was felt that the status of a chemical should be presented in the documents prepared by one committee from another committee. So if the Chemical Review Committee is preparing a document, the status of that chemical in the POPRC committee should be established in the document of the Chemical Review Committee. Also, the use of information on alternatives from the Chemical Review Committee could be used in evaluation of alternatives by the POPRC committee. For enhancing cooperation and collaboration, it was agreed that a briefing should be done for the second committee, especially where there is a joint meeting, on the outcomes of the first committee's work. And therefore, next year, the first meeting would be Chemical Review Committee. So the second meeting, the POPRC, would get a briefing on what occurred in the Chemical Review Committee meeting that preceded it. This particular avenue, webinars, was also accepted as a measure for explaining the results of the meetings to members, to party representatives, to observers, NGOs, and all are welcome to participate in webinars regarding the matters that have been discussed at these committees. Finally, a joint intersessional working group has been established to consider guidance and to develop further guidance, if necessary, on how the CRC should consider a chemical that is already a POP. And this intersessional working group will report back to the meetings next year on its work. The next meetings. There will be back-to-back meetings again in Rome next year. The CRC 10 will take place from the 20th to the 24th of October. We have a new chair. The chair was selected from the Bureau. He's Mr. Jürgen Helbig from Spain. He replaces Ms. Hala Aliasa from Qatar. And we thank Hala for her very solid work as the chair of the CRC over the last 2 or 3 years. The vice chairs that have been selected are Ms. Amal Al-Rashdan from Kuwait, Mr. Gilberto Filman from Brazil, Ms. Magdalena Friedrich from Poland, and Mr. Boniface Mbere from Zambia. These persons will still have to be confirmed by the Conference of the Parties at its next meeting. For the POPRC, the next meeting is just after the CRC meeting in October next year. And the chair, the new chair that has been selected is Ms. Estefania Moreira from Brazil. And her vice chair is Mr. Azari Abdelbashi from Sudan. And Ms. Moreira has replaced Mr. Rainer Art from Germany, who was the long-standing chair of POPRC and guided us through the first 9 meetings of this August body. Thank you very much for your attention, and both Katarina and I will be very happy to try and answer any questions that you may have. Thank you very much.